Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Musicast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And before we get started, I just want to mention again that we do have a new Facebook page. So please head over there to Facebook and like it. It's facebook.com/No Name Musiccast. That's facebook.com/No Name Musiccast. As I said, just go over to the page, like it. We'll be posting some episode stuff and some other interesting links for you. But anyway, this week's episode is Joy's turn to pick the topic. And as normal, I don't know what she's picked. So, Joy, it is over to you.
Okay, so this is going to be one of our more unique episodes. It's not going to fall in line with some of our other ones, but it is about musicians as a whole. It just has a different theme. So we're going to talk about musicians who have passed away, who possibly were murdered, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories behind what happened to them when they passed.
Okay.
So, first of all, Tim, do you believe in ghosts?
Well, if I'm being honest, no.
Okay. I am on the fence about it. I don't believe every story I hear, but I don't know that I don't think I don't know where I stand, I guess, is the end to that statement. But these are just interesting. And these are going to be some ones that some of these you've probably heard of. Some of these are not going to be shocking in any way. But there's some interesting conspiracy theories that are out there. And I saw one. We're going to have to post it on the page after we're done. But there was a picture, and I swear to you, I know why they said this. It's of Graceland, and it's Elvis. And supposedly it's after he died, of course. And it really does look like his face in the window. Like 110%. If I didn't know any better, I would think that was Elvis.
Well, do you know what? I think I've actually heard that conspiracy theory before, because there's this whole thing about Elvis where, yes, he was very unhealthy and he was doing a lot of drugs and all that stuff towards the end of his life. But there was a lot of people saying that he wanted to get out of the music business. He wanted to get out of being Elvis Presley. So he faked his own death so he could go away and he could get well and he could be happy and do all the things that he wanted to do and not have to deal with Colonel Tom Parker and all that kind of stuff. And just disappear. And then there's been that conspiracy has existed for a long time. And in fact, I think the photograph that you're referencing, I have in fact seen it. Yeah. And yes, it does look like Elvis at the window. Yeah,
it's him sitting in a window. So here's a couple of theories. Since we're on Elvis, I'll just start with him because he's the most obvious. There's been a lot of sightings of Elvis. There's a lot of jokes. So basically, Elvis died at age 42 on August 16th, 1977 at Graceland. So that makes a difference why, you might see his ghost hanging around Graceland. Not only is it a house it's associated with, it's apparently what he died of. We all know he was overweight, not doing well, had liver damage, was on a lot of bad drugs he wasn't supposed to. All things considered, what they're saying, the biggest theory is what Tim's saying. It's thought that Elvis faked his death to escape the public eye, which makes sense because he was under a lot of scrutiny and he was in bad shape. But one of the weird things is theories speculate everything from the fact that his headstone bears his middle name, Aaron, as opposed to better known, it's Aron. Apparently, that's what Elvis went by. He went by like Aaron, like Aron, and not Aaron, even though his official name is Aaron, which I thought that was weird.
Yeah, because Joy, have you ever been to Graceland?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you go out into the reflection garden at the back of the house, and they have the pool and they have the gravestone, and people leave flowers. And in fact, I've left at least one of my personal guitar picks on Elvis's gravestone because a sign of respect as a guitar player, you'd maybe leave a guitar pick there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I've heard that before, that his name is spelled incorrectly on the stone. Which is odd. You would think Elvis and the money that the Elvis estate would have, if a stonemason had made that and it was spelt wrong, you think they'd probably go back and fix it.
Well, what they're saying is he went by Aron, but legally his name actually was Aaron. It must have been a preference or like a stage thing. It looked better on paper. I don't know. So maybe they stuck with it because that was his legal name. I'm not sure.
It could be. The other thing about Graceland is, when you walk in the house, you're allowed on like the first floor or the ground floor for our UK listeners, and you're allowed in the basement, which has the jungle room in it. but they don't let you upstairs. And they tell you a tale that they say that, outside of the limelight, Elvis was a very private person, and the bedroom and the sleeping areas and what have you was always off limits to guests, and we're respecting Elvis's wishes because we're not taking you up into the top of the house. But in fact, that is rubbish. The reason they don't do it is because when you first walk in Graceland, directly above you is the bathroom in which he died. And what they don't want is visitors coming into the house and making that a shrine.
That makes sense. It's the same thing. They did kind of the same thing with Prince. They put certain things were off limits when they opened up his house, which I kind of thought was a little weird because Prince was very kind of a private guy. You know what I mean? I don't think he was bolsterous in the sense that like he, had that larger than life and used a symbol for his name and drive a giant purple guitar. But like personally wise, I think his personal life was very, he kept it to himself. That's the way I kind of always thought.
Yeah, he was a very aloof character. And I mean, Paisley Park, his house in Minneapolis, certain parts of it, he would, he'd host concerts and what have you. And, he'd invite people in or invite friends in, or I think even sometimes he'd even invite some members of the public in. But like you say, I think his main creative space where his studio was and absolutely everything like that wasn't not something you'd want people going around there.
Yeah, I think he was purposely keeping that. So I think they kind of, for a while, they were keeping people out. But now I think, unfortunately, the money hogs of the world may have let people in those spaces. I don't know. It's just a little weird to me. I think that when someone dies, if that's the way they were in life, I would probably stay with that in death. But that's my personal opinion. So back to Elvis. So another thing is the day after Elvis died, a man named John Burroughs, which was Elvis's alias for hotels, reportedly purchased a ticket to Buenos Aires. I had never heard that one.
I mean, it could be a complete coincidence. And equally, what did you say the name was? John Burroughs.
John Burroughs, Burrows. It's a fairly common name.
Yeah, and he could have taken that name off of somebody that was on his staff, somebody who worked in security, say.
Or it could have just been a name he saw somewhere.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh, look at this, John Burroughs is traveling.
So yeah, that was, and we've talked a little bit about some fun aliases that our celebrities have in previous episodes, but that was another thing. And then there's this one, and this I don't get, because the man in the video, it's a YouTube video. I'm just going to read it. Fans have made multiple claims to have cited the king post-death. We've all heard that. As recently as in June of this year, this video of a possible Elvis sighting has been shared widely. The video depicts a man walking towards the camera, flipping two fingers. A sign YouTuber named The Shadow claims it's a simple V sign to tell us he's alive. Why this man? Never mind the fact that the guy doesn't look anything like Elvis would at 81. The man looks like he's in his 50s. But did Elvis give a lot of peace signs? Like, what does the V, how did they know that? How did they associate that with Elvis? I'm very confused by that.
Well, it depends what kind of V this is, because if certainly the peace sign with the back of your hand facing is peace, ladies and gentlemen. But when you're in England, the V sign that way is something completely different.
Yes.
and in fact, I could explain what that's all about, because in fact, I was telling someone that story today. So apparently, way back when the British were fighting the French, that what they used to do is they used to capture the French archers. And then because the only weapons they had were the what do you call it? The archery things. The
bow and arrow type thing.
Yeah, bow and arrow. That's the word I'm looking for. Bow and arrows. That's the only weapons that they had. So what they would do is they didn't want the hassle of having captured a French soldier. So they would just capture them. They would cut their top two fingers off, and then they'd release them, because then from that point they couldn't do archery and they couldn't shoot their bows and arrows. So whenever the British soldiers would see the French people who they'd previously captured, they would point their fingers up like that, saying, "Look, I've got my fingers, and that's where the insult comes from.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I know, like, of course they say if you're ever going to go to any you're not used to look up some basic things. His gestures are different across the board. But that's an interesting story. I knew I had read the thing about a peace sign one way and a peace sign the other way means different things in Europe, but I didn't know what it was from. So that's cool, Tim. I had no idea.
Well, there you go.
It all comes full circle, guys. All right. So this last little piece about Elvis was, it says immediately there was a weird interview from 2005 where Priscilla Presley, I'm assuming those out there know his ex-wife that he has his daughter with and all that stuff, mentioned something Elvis said the other day while talking to Oprah. But if you've ever known someone who's passed or someone who's not in your life, I could see you just saying that, but it wasn't like the other day, like 2 days ago. If you're like me and you talk probably grandiose, so then you probably should. The other day could be 7 years ago.
True. And then the other thing is, I mean, I don't know Priscilla Presley's faith, or whether she's a spiritual person, or whether she's, born again, or whatever she's into, or whatever's important to her. It could be, if she's a spiritual person, maybe she does speak to Elvis on a regular basis, but she speaks to him not in the physical sense.
And that could be, maybe it's something he did say 20 years ago, but like you're saying, the ghost reminds her of that or anything. It really could be anything. I think that's a kind of silly thing to bring up. Of course, there is a theory that he's just impersonating himself in Vegas as well, which that one Vegas impersonator that you met in Vegas, Tim, did you think he was really Elvis?
Well, I don't know if the real Elvis was that grumpy, and I don't know whether the real Elvis would be eating in Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville on the Vegas Strip. I don't know.
See, the thing about it is that's what he wants you to think. He's doing the opposite of what you think the real Elvis would do to stay hidden. Duh.
Yeah, because obviously if Elvis was going to stay hidden, he would most definitely be wearing his white Elvis jumpsuit with sequins whilst being in a theme restaurant on the Vegas Strip. That's effectively Elvis camouflage. I mean, like, he could be in a massive group of people and no one would know it was Elvis.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's like that whole hidden in plain sight, There's
another story about Elvis where, I mean, I'm assuming this is true. I read it on the internet. It must be true. Apparently, yes. during the highlight of his fame, Elvis entered an Elvis lookalike competition. And then he came third or something.
I've heard that about Dolly. I've heard Dolly Parton herself say she lost a lookalike contest of herself.
Yeah.
So apparently that does happen. And, they have all those waxed statues of Elvis. People are saying that the body was a wax statue. Anyway, there's about 1,000 of them, guys. We'll have to post the picture after this of him looking through the window that me and Tim are talking about. Because it is, I will say, it looks like, I hate to say this, heavier set Elvis towards the end. It does.
But I mean, it's not, but the thing is, being a photograph from that era, it's not like you have EXIF data on the image. I mean, it could have been taken a month before.
And so I was just claiming it. The other thing about it is have you, and I don't mean the Matrix, but Tim, have you ever heard of the, how our brains do what's known as matrixing? Have you ever heard that term? So what that is we automatically look for faces in anything. Our brains scan for faces because of, survival, evolution. Back in the day when you're walking through the woods and a lion sitting there, you want to be able to identify the lion face, right?
Sure.
So when we see pictures like that, you have to take into account there could be shadows. There could have been a picture of him reflecting in that window, and our brains are going to automatically autofill those spots. And it's going to look like him. So that could be it too. But I will say it is pretty convincing.
Okay, well, we'll definitely put that on the Facebook page after we post this episode, so you can decide for yourself whether that is Elvis or whether that's just a shadow or something. Okay,
so this one, she did sing in a few movies, but this one was more of an actress. But I'll give it to her because she's well, if you've been to my house, you know I'm a big fan of her. But also, she did sing in quite a few movies, and this is just an interesting. It's Marilyn Monroe, so. She's kind of borderline. I realized this. Everybody's screaming, she's not a musician. We'll only talk to her for about 30 seconds. Okay, guys? I have a biasy. She did sing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, so give her that. And she sang JFK Happy Birthday. Just saying.
I mean, she has single-handedly sung more songs than Milli Vanilli ever did. Put it that way.
And there's probably a lot more artists we don't even. Oh, Ashley Simpson.
Yeah, Ashley Simpson, who committed the cardinal sin of throwing her band under the bus because they played the wrong backing track.
So we'll keep driving the bus back over her now. Every chance we can get, just for the principle of the fact. So anyway, obviously we know she overdosed in her own home. She was found, she overdosed, all that kind of stuff. Aside from many conspiracy theories, the biggest one, and I don't know if you pick up on this, we said JFK a minute ago. Mm-hmm. There's a whole thing that her and JFK had something going on the side. We're not going to get into that. Not really worth our time. But there's a theory the CIA killed her to get rid of her because she was having an affair with him. And they didn't want the first lady to find out.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, the whole JFK thing is riddled with conspiracy and things that don't make sense, and grassy knoll and second shooter and all that kind of business. So I think if you take the bigger context of that whole JFK legacy thing that's going on, it's not outside the realms of possibility.
No, and the thing about it is he also had, supposedly, there's a lot of theories that JFK had a lot of mafia connections. Mm-hmm. So there's some things there that could be, there's theories that the mafia killed him. There's theories that our own government killed him. There's theories that, it was a shooter they never found. There's multiple shooters. I don't know that I subscribe to a lot of those theories. I kind of think that, what is his name? John Wilkes Booth. Was that the one who killed him?
No, Lee Harvey Oswald. I think John Wilkes Booth.
He killed him. I know, Lincoln, right?
Yes.
Dang it. Sorry, guys.
I mean, is this a No Name Musicast exclusive? John Wilkes Booth was responsible for the assassination of JFK. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first on the No Name Musicast.
I can't breathe. I solved it. I solved it all. I can't. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, no, that was Lincoln. I was like, no, that's not right.
You remember Ford's Theater, the whole thing? You remember
that was like a thing. Well, and then there was that one crazy person who said, was it Jodie Foster? He tried to kill Reagan because Jodie Foster was it Jodie Foster?
Yeah, it was. It was okay. Whoever the guy was that tried to kill Reagan was doing it because he was trying to impress Jodie Foster.
Okay. Yes, because after I can't remember who shot what president, I have to confirm that I have the right actor in mind, Jodie Foster. So that was another one that happened. Anyway, so the other theory that with Marilyn Monroe is obviously she was struggling with substance abuse. She had some mental health things. There was a lot of stuff that led up to her, struggling. They think that the other thing is she was still alive, and someone says they saw her in 1984, whether that is true or not, I don't know. They said that she picked up her stuff and went hitchhiking and moved to a mental hospital, basically, and she wanted to stay away from the public eye. And there's some guy who said that the guy in 1984 who says he saw her literally says that I said picked up her stuff and hitchhiked to the mental hospital, but then he later says he saw her hitchhiking on the side of the road in 1984 and picked her up. So the hitchhiking thing came full circle. I said it without realizing the next line said it again.
or could it be whoever this person was saw a blonde lady at the side of the road from a distance dressed in a similar fashion and thought, oh, look, that's Marilyn Monroe.
You mean to tell me that guy that my dad picked up as a hitchhiker who said he was Jesus wasn't Jesus, Tim? Come on.
I think it's possible it wasn't. Just again, another exclusive for you.
Sorry, Dad. I don't think it was really Jesus. Okay. My father does listen. Hi, Dad. Okay. Anyway. So that's one of the theories, that she apparently went to a mental hospital, didn't want anyone to know, and just wanted to get out, which she did have a lot of stuff going on her. And in her height of her career, she obviously was struggling with some problems. So here is another musician that's not going to come as a shock to anyone. Kurt Cobain.
Yes.
So we know he died April 5th, 1994 from a self-inflicted bullet wound. There was a lot of inconsistencies in what people reported and what they found and whether it was an actual self-inflicted. And you've got some things. Some people blame his girlfriend, Courtney Love Hewitt, or whatever. Not Courtney Love Hewitt. What was her name?
Courtney Love.
Courtney Love. I added Hewitt to the end. Everybody's going to get on me tonight. I can't think of names. Okay. But that one, there's some theories with that. So what they're saying, one big thing is, how could he have shot himself while under the influence of substantial 1.52 milligrams per liter of heroin in his bloodstream? I have no clue what amount of heroin you should have in your bloodstream. I think it's zero. Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he was going to pinpoint how much heroin the average person should have in their bloodstream, I think a good benchmark would be zero.
That's what I'm going to go with, but I don't know. Well, let's think about this. So if you're drinking, the legal amount you can have in your system is 0.08, right, to drive in America?
Something
Virginia?
like that. Something like that.
So
yeah.
Compare that to 1.52. That sounds like a lot. So apparently they're saying that he would have been so heavily sedated and out of it, it would not have been possible for him to shoot himself. I don't know that I subscribe to that, Tim. Might have been by accident.
Well, I can tell you, as somebody who maybe has been intoxicated with alcohol and a few times in the past, and that one time New Year's Eve at the Red Line in Twickenham, when I was incredibly intoxicated with alcohol, despite the fact I don't know what my legal blood level of alcohol was, I was still able to sit up on the stage and wave my legs around and sing some song at the top of my voice, apparently. I have no recollection of that, but I was able to do that, just saying.
Okay, so on another story of someone who may have had a lot of alcohol in their system, maybe their name was Joy, maybe this was a while back at a bar. I too got on stage while drinking before, heavily intoxicated, and may have danced and don't remember exactly what I did, but apparently I was up there. So with that being said, I think if you can do these things, as me and Tim are saying, you probably could hold a gun.
Possibly, but could you lead a conga line at Blazers nightclub in Windsor, lead the conga line, are you familiar with the band Slade?
Yes. Yeah. They're one of my favorite bands, actually.
Yeah, anyway, so while Slade too, it's Slade with that noddy holder, but so Slade were playing, I led a conga line and got to the front of the stage, and the guitarist Dave Hill gave me a high five as I congaed past.
Well,
could you do that?
No, because most of my stories when I have drank too much has ended with me injuring myself in some capacity. I broke my tailbone one time. I fell out a back glass door. We can go on for days. So, moral of the story. One time, oh my God, Tim, I have to. Okay, if we're going to go there, I'm just going to say it. Me and my friends, so there's 2 times that I got injured, not of my own accord, where there may have been alcohol involved. One time we were doing, and both of them involved line dances of sorts. So one time we were doing, I want to say both times it was the Cupid Shuffle. Don't quote me on it, but I want to say it was the Cupid Shuffle. So, we were Cupid shuffling and we were too close to a table that happened to have a drill that you use on it. And my friend Cupid shuffled into the table. And then where it goes, now kick. In the song, my friend kicked too far and kicked me. and I ended up having to go to the hospital the next day for severe pain in my back because I got kicked right. He thought, I don't know why he was deciding that was the moment to high kick. The song doesn't really require any high kicking, but there was, like we said, many alcohol involved. And yeah, that's the 2 times I got injured doing the Cupid Shuffle. So,
typically, I think if you look at US statistics, I don't think there's too many injuries reported a year from Cupid shuffling.
Okay, so if anyone knows the world record, let me know so I can apply to hold the Genesis World Record book for the amount of times you've been injured doing the Cupid Shuffle.
And the wobble as well. Throw the wobble in there as well. Just for...
Okay, I did get injured doing the wobble once too. So this one wasn't at home, though. Those two, we were at home being silly. This one, we were at a bar in Blacksburg, close to where me and Tim live. And I was wobbling, too wobbly, and fell. And people had to help me back up. And that one, I don't even think I was that drunk yet. I'm just really clumsy.
Do you have any electric slide injuries that you want to confess at this juncture?
If I did, I don't remember them. I don't think so. We did learn, Tim, a hard lesson about the electric slide. So my best friend's wedding, she had a friend who did kind of what you said, brought all his MP3s and was her DJ, right? You know, the modern day DJ. Well, he obviously didn't DJ as much as he said he did because you cut the electric slide. The electric slide is long. Mm-hmm. And if you have a group of people who have been going since 8 a.m. at a bridal party and, you know, they've had tequila shots and this is the middle of the night and they're Cupid shuffling and then they're doing the cha-cha slide and then they're, you know, and then the electric slide comes on, that you should cut it. He did not. About halfway through the electric slide, we're all going, am I going to die? When does this end? It's the longest song ever. just so you know. So, all right. Moral of the story is if me and Tim can do a lot of those things while intoxicated, I don't know anything about what heroin does to a person. I'm just going to speak from my experience, and I would imagine Tim's experience too. I don't think we're that hardcore. But with that being said, I still think, and even though the thing that would make me think, not that he didn't do it himself, that would make me think it was like an accident. Mm-hmm. Like he didn't mean to do it because he was intoxicated, but that doesn't make me think that he still couldn't hold a gun. I don't know.
I don't know.
But anyway, then the other thing is they did bring this in. He had a severe heroin addiction for years. His tolerance level had to be pretty high.
That's true. But my understanding with heroin is that you take it and it's a high. And then when you come off it, you feel terrible, like the worst you've ever felt in your life. And then you have to take heroin again just to get a baseline of feeling normal. I don't think it's like other drugs where you take them and then you get a high every time. I think I've never done it, but that's my understanding.
Well, I've understood it too. And that's why harder drugs like fentanyl and stuff, that people go for those after they've been on heroin because the amount it makes them high reduces and they feel terrible. And meth does the same type of thing. I think that's true, but that's just mentioned he would have had a higher tolerance. So he might have had to take more to get to that high again, and so on and so forth. We're not experts on this, but that's just what they said. Oh, wow. So some fans have taken the controversy around Nirvana's frontman death to the next level, believing that Kurt Cobain lives on as Rivers Cuomo of Weezer.
He's Weezer, living with Rivers Cuomo from Weezer?
No, that he is him. They think he's now in Weezer.
I think Weezer was operational at the time Nirvana was operational.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I don't know, because I can think of Weezer songs from the 90s, but were they mid 90s or early 90s?
I don't know. I think Weezer's been going for some time. I
feel like it has, because it's kind of like the Offspring, where they've been going for years. You know what I mean? People don't realize how far back the Offspring dates. I don't know. Apparently that's what people believe, that he is now performing in Weezer. And if he is, I like your music. It's pretty good.
Well, the thing is that Weezer is now fronted by Weird Al Yankovic. Have you seen the Africa video?
Yes, and I love every moment of it. It's fantastic.
And in fact, Weird Al is better at being Rivers Cuomo than Rivers Cuomo is.
Yes. So Weird Al, as we've talked about before, is one of my favorites. I'm losing an earbud. But he's one of my favorites, and that video is amazing if you guys haven't seen it. And see, I don't care for Africa by Toto anymore. Don't care for it. I've heard it too many times. It's one of those songs for me. But that version's awesome.
Yeah, it's become one of those. It's become one of those overplayed classic songs. I mean, it's a fantastic song. Mm-hmm. The whole of Toto 4 is just this amazing piece of music. The whole album from beginning to end is amazing, but it became culturally trendy or something to be into Africa, even if you wasn't into that kind of music. And then a lot of people covered it, and then
the
Weezer
internet
covered
hated
it,
that.
and it became a whole thing. So I don't know if I'm quite at full saturation point with it yet, but I get where you're coming from.
I have a husband who really likes it, and that's part of the reason why I've heard the Weird Al version so much. So that could be contributing to it. But I mean, I prefer, like, if I'm going to go for Toto songs that I want to hear that are a little bit more mainstream, Hold the Line. Hold the Line is a great song.
Oh, of
Absolutely
course.
love it.
And then Rosanna. I mean,
yeah.
The jamming, Steve Lukather's jamming guitar solo at the end is absolutely phenomenal. One take job. It's amazing.
You know, that's one of those bands that, like, I mean, people know probably 3 or 4 songs from them, right? But I think that they're generally, besides Africa, because it became popular, and then there was that Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell who went to Africa and they did the video, and everybody got excited because they walked around a safari with it playing, and it made it more culturally, you know, back into swing again. But I think Toto is an underrated band. You don't hear about them very much.
No, I mean, I have the Toto's discography box set, which I bought a year or so ago. And I forget how many albums they have in total. It's something like 12, 13, something like that. And I recently listened to Steve Lukather's autobiography, which I will say is fantastic, because I'm not a person who really enjoys reading so much, but I do like audiobooks. And I especially like autobiography audiobooks, especially for musicians. And some... Like I listened to Keith Richards' audiobook, and some of it is narrated by him, some of it's narrated by Johnny Depp, and some of it is narrated by a random voice actor. But the good thing about the Steve Lukather audiobook, he narrates the whole thing, but he's not telling it like he's reading it off the page. He's telling you the story like he was sitting at a bar with him. And apparently in the audiobook it's different to what's written on the page, because he's just riffing on tales and he's saying extra stuff, and then sometimes he'll read a thing about something that happened and this happened on the road, and then he goes on a little bit longer and he said, oh yeah, he said, that's not in the book. He said, I probably shouldn't have said that, but well, you got it now.
That's still funny though. That sounds really good. The one I think one of the best, I guess if you would count her as a musician, one of the best autobiographies I've read, as far as that kind of thing goes, is LaToya Jackson, because you know she wasn't necessarily the one who produced. She did, I think, have a few albums, but by no means was she one of the ones that had, like, you know, the massive hits that some of her siblings. So it was kind of interesting to hear her perspective from the outside looking in, and like all the controversy with their dad and stuff. And for Michael, and she talks a lot about, I believe this, you know, say what you want about Michael, but I do think he suffered with body dysphoria, whatever that word is, where when you see yourself in the mirror, it doesn't look like what you see. I think he really struggled with that. So I think that contributed. She talks a lot about some of that stuff as she's gotten older. She saw things in him like that. So anyone out there looking for good things to read, me and Tim got some recommendations.
Did you ever hear that, or did you ever read that Quincy Jones interview that came out a couple of years ago?
I don't know. I've seen a lot on Quincy Jones, but it doesn't ring any particular bells.
It was in Rolling Stone or Vanity Fair or one of the publications like that. And it was a completely frank interview with Quincy Jones. And they were asking him a bunch of different stuff. And he said, I'm telling you everything. He said, I'm very old and I'm very rich and I don't care. And they was asking
I've heard
him
he's like that now.
Yeah, and they were asking him about Michael Jackson, and they said, you know, with his what was the deal with Michael Jackson? Did he have mental health issues? Did he, what was with the plastic surgery? And he said it's very simple. He said his daddy told him he was ugly ever since he was a kid. And apparently, and that's where it stems from.
That makes sense. I've heard Quincy Jones speak, and didn't he like recently almost die, like in a hospital?
Possibly.
I think he got really sick, and they said it even made him even more frank than he used to be. But I'd have to look into it more.
And maybe that was the reason why he did this interview. But again, that interview is worth looking up, because there's some interesting nuggets and theories from Quincy Jones. But as I said, he pulled no punches, and he was like, what do I care? I'm very old and very rich.
He is very old and very rich, so I don't blame him.
There you go.
I mean, if you did everything he did with Motown, you would probably feel the same. Anyway,
Exactly.
him and Barry Gordy. Put Barry Gordy on there too, and you've got an interesting story. So the next one is one that you hear a little bit about, but there was a lot of conflicting stories, and I've heard different theories, and I don't even know if I know 100% what the true one. It's Jim Morrison. Remember how he was found in the bathtub in Paris in the hotel? So, and I know you've been to Paris, Tim. You know how they have like that tribute to him. Have you seen that in person?
No, I've been to Paris a few times, but I've never been to the graveyard where Jim Morrison is buried.
I went when I went to Paris, and it was kind of underwhelming, but it was pretty cool. And then isn't John Lennon's Imagine, is that in New York or is that in Paris too?
No, that's in New York. It's Strawberry Fields, just at the side of Central Park at Central Park West, and it's opposite the Dakota. Have you ever been there?
Yes, I've been there. I just couldn't remember where I was with.
Yeah. You have the Dakota building on the left, and then you have Central Park on the right hand side, and the entrance to Central Park there, Central Park West. And then you walk through, and then you have the Imagine thing that's in the ground that's there. Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually, now that you said that, of course it was, because I did a tour of New York, like a guided tour, and they brought us to where he was killed up front of his apartment, where he was standing, where the guy who shot him was. And then they brought us over to the Imagine circle on the ground with everybody leaving flowers and stuff like that. Anyway, so so he is part of the Forever 27 Club, which I know you've heard of before.
Yep.
So they all have white lighters in their pocket. They're 27. They overdosed. We've all heard it. I don't know if I put too much stock into it. I think that maybe that's just a coincidence. With that being said, no autopsies were conducted on Jim Morrison. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I suppose it depends on the circumstances of his death and whether it was treated as suspicious.
Well, and I don't know, because see, I feel like in America, they do almost like an autopsy almost all the time. But I don't know in other countries if if they do autopsies or if there's different rules or laws. So that could contribute to it, too.
Well, it probably comes from the US health care system, which is paid for, which means they can bill it to someone. Maybe in certainly with socialized healthcare in Europe, maybe it's only done if it's suspicious circumstances. I don't know.
That's true, too. I mean, I would say, if you're murdered, you're going to get an autopsy. Or if there's a suspected, like you were poisoned or something like that, you're going to get an autopsy. But anyway, so the theory about Jim Morrison is he has moved to Oregon and he's living as Bob Lawyer. I don't know how to spell it. Loyer. Someone wants to look him up, who opened the Jim Morrison Sanctuary Ranch.
Okay.
Somebody goes, you totally name your new ranch after the former celebrity identity you have to hide, like Tim was saying with Elvis hiding in his suit. I don't know what the Sanctuary Ranch is. It kind of looks like a hippie commune by the pictures. Just saying.
I mean, is it an owl sanctuary? Is it a cracking owl sanctuary?
Let's do some research. Jim Morrison's Sanctuary Ranch. I'm not going to lie. Looking at the pictures, it kind of looks like a commune or something. Cult.
See, if you're saying it looks like a hippie commune, to me it sounds like somebody who has a hippie commune and thought, man, it'd be really cool if we named this after Jim Morrison because he was such a cool cat.
I'm trying to find... Apparently, they have horses. I found a thing saying you can go ride horses there.
Oh,
it's almost like... So, yeah, it's like a horse ranch with a bunch of different buildings out. That's why I was saying it kind of looks like a commune. But it's a horse ranch, and you can go ride horses there, but there's not a whole lot about it. I imagine maybe he's just a guy who enjoys Jim Morrison horses based off of this.
Or it could be there's actually a man there whose name is Jim Morrison.
You mean like my father?
Yes, yes.
Who saw that coming? My dad's name is Jim Morrison for the crowd out there. Been hearing that my whole life.
So what you're basically saying is that your dad has a ranch that he's never told you about.
Just add that to the weird list of things my father's done. And you guys would be shocked to hear some of the things. Anyway, yeah, Dad has a ranch in Oregon where Vanilla Ice and Elvis are at as well. They hang out with him there.
Well, of course they do. I mean, where else would you be?
They're riding horses. Okay, so, and let me see. Hold on. There's a few more obvious ones that Tim's probably already thought of in the back of his head. So, Tim, have we convinced you that while I'm looking, have we convinced you that any of these people are alive?
No, I don't think any of these people are still alive. I mean, I think a lot of this boils down to is, I say well-meaning fans, but fans who can't let it go that their favorite musician or favorite idol or whatever has gone. So they cook up all these theories in some kind of vague hope that one day they could resurface.
That makes sense. And the thing about it is, truthfully, Tim, I don't know if anybody has realized that today is it 5 years or 6 years anniversary of Prince's death?
I think it's probably about right.
Today is the anniversary of Prince's death, but I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 years. So that's why I picked this topic for this episode. I had that in mind. And they talked about, even to this day, they gave away free tickets to Prince's wherever he's buried at. And it was like first come, first serve, and they were gone in about 30 seconds, and all his super fans went and visited him 6 years later. So to say that a session is there, it's definitely there.
Yeah, I mean, I know Eddie Van Halen, for example, was cremated, but I mean, do I really want to visit his memorial place? No, I don't want to do that.
Not really.
The only place that I would go to is where Les Paul is buried, and the reason I would go there is that Les actually designed it. And he picked the plot because he was a man in his 90s. I saw him play when he was in his 90s in New York City. In fact, I saw him twice. But when he was getting towards the end of his life, he picked the place in the town where he came from. He knew where he wanted to be buried, and he knew the kind of design of the thing that he wanted to have. And he set it all up because he knew that guitar players would want to come there and see him. Mm-hmm. So he designed it where, people could come and sit and reflect and play guitar and leave guitar picks on his tombstone and stuff like that. So that doesn't feel weird because I know that Les was planning for that to happen. But for people that were taken early, like Prince and Elvis and Michael Jackson,
Janis Joplin,
and all those kind of people, I don't know. It's a private thing for their family. I don't know if I really want to go to their shrine. I mean, I think Elvis is slightly different because, you go to Graceland and it's there. It's part of the tour. They take you around the house where Elvis lived, and then you come out the end and there's the reflection garden and there's Elvis's tombstone. And it's the package. But to go into a random cemetery somewhere where some musician or actor that you idolize and go to their private resting place that maybe their family would go to, that's just a bit weird.
And I think for me, it really depends on the celebrity too. Like there's some celebrities who I think they want to be larger than life when they are celebrities. So that contributes to the biz around them, kind of like you're talking about Elvis. But there's some celebrities I think that isn't what they'd want. Like Prince, when he specifically said he never wanted a hologram of him. And then what do they put on the Super Bowl? A hologram of him.
Yeah, that's just weird.
It's kind of, I think it really just depends on who it is. Last one, Tim, we're going to speak on, and you just hit on it, is Michael Jackson, of course.
Absolutely.
He's probably one of our most recent. We all know he overdosed. He was taking a lot of pain. He was doing the This Is Us concert reunion thing. He was his body wasn't in the greatest condition. He overdosed on painkillers, so on and so forth. So he was found, in California. Ronald Reagan, UCLA hospitals where he passed away. So there's a lot of theories, once again, because he's somebody who was in the limelight of life, that he wanted to just run away and disappear. Mm-hmm. And his health, I think, was deteriorating too. They said that doing that last concert for him was going to be really hard physically. He wasn't doing well. So YouTube and documentary filmmaker, I don't know if I believe he's a documentary filmmaker. I think this is a YouTube person who wants to call themselves that. Named Pearl Jr. has released multiple videos insisting Michael's not dead. He is also an avid fan of using Comic Sans. I noticed that in his video, which I wasn't a fan of.
Because you know that all the serious documentary filmmakers use Comic Sans font.
Yes, so there's just throwing that out there in the realm of things. So she believes, I guess Pearl Jr. is a she believes Michael's body was faked with the wax work. So what we buried was just wax.
Okay.
Supposedly. And that his hospital, they switched his body out. Because she says that Michael switched out the bodies in the hospital photos because they look like a hospice cancer patient and not Michael Jackson. Well, if you're ODing and almost on your deathbed, you're probably going to look like a hospice patient, I would think.
Yeah, you're not going to look your best. I think, there was so much controversy with Michael Jackson, with his life, and even before there was controversy, there was things that he was sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber and his various plastic surgeries, and the fact he had a zoo and bubbles and he had fairground rides in his house and all this kind of business. So it doesn't surprise me in death that circus carries with him. And
I think that was truthfully, I think that was his way of kind of distracting himself in some ways. And I think he wanted to be a larger than life. And you remember Neverland Ranch was kind of failing. He kind of started running low on money. There's a lot of other things that was probably contributing to his estate that he was in at that moment. I mean, he sang a song about a mouse named Ben and made it work. The man's a legend.
Well, that's true.
So say what you want, he's a legend. So he had all that stuff around him, and I think that there was just a lot going on. Supposedly there is, his daughter Paris Jackson, because there's Prince the Second in Paris. I don't know.
Isn't it? It's Paris, Prince Michael, and isn't there one Blanket? Or is that Prince Michael?
Yeah, they called him Blanket because he was the one that they held the blanket over his face or whatever.
Okay, I am. And isn't there this whole thing where his children aren't his biological children?
That is a thought that they had, that he is not their bud. Because there's thoughts that he was never into females, apparently. There's been something that's come into light about that. I don't know if that's true, but supposedly they're not really that some people don't believe they're his biological children.
Well, I mean, they can still be his children. I mean, someone's child isn't necessarily have to be a biological child. I
guess we should say not his biological children.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm one of those people that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. He was in their lives and was a good dad to them and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So apparently Paris, there's a video she posted and it was on Instagram. It claims that Michael Jackson's face is recognizable in the back of with a fedora over him and a pile of clothes on her back seat. I don't see it, but people are swearing they see Michael Jackson's face in it. Now, once again, that could go back to the Matrix thing and seeing what you want to see. As we've stated, they want to see his face there, so they see his face there.
Sure.
Then there's also apparently another YouTuber. His name is Acid Hunk, if anybody's interested. Claims that he bumped into Michael Jackson on a late night trip to the vending machine. I don't know what vending machine. I don't know which vending machine he was, but a vending machine. He went to the vending machine and Michael was there.
And what state is this person from?
I didn't say. That's all I got about it, was that he claims that Acid Hunk claims he was on his way to the vending machine late at night and he saw Michael Jackson. That's all I could find.
Well, let's just suppose that this person, Acid Hunk, is from the fine state of California, who have very lenient recreational drug laws. And maybe Acid Hunk had been indulging in some of these recreational products that are legal in the state of Virginia and needed a fix on some chocolate products and was somewhat under the influence and was like, man, I just saw Michael Jackson.
The other thing is his name is acid, like ACID hunk, and acid tends to make people see things that aren't there. So that could be another theory. Just throwing that out there, guys. I mean,
this stuff is not coming from NPR or the Associated Press, is it? I mean,
no. I can't find any official documentation. It's a lot of YouTube theories. Okay, guys. All right. Well, Tim, we didn't convince you of anything, did we?
Well, I tell you one theory isn't a death, but it may be a conspiracy death. We haven't spoken about Paul McCartney.
Oh, yeah. Avril Lavigne, too. She's apparently dead, too.
Oh, cool. Because the whole thing with Paul McCartney is that at the height of the Beatles' fame, supposedly he died, but like Brian Epstein and the Beatles management and all that kind of stuff obviously couldn't let McCartney die, so they put his identical twin brother in the Beatles to carry on.
I've heard that, and I've actually heard them ask Paul McCartney about it in an interview, and he's like, okay, here we go again.
Because if you look on the cover of the Sgt. Pepper's album, in the flowers, it's supposedly it's a guitar. Someone has made a guitar in the flowers on the lawn of the Sgt. Pepper's cover.
I'm looking behind me if anybody's wondering, because the album's on my wall.
Oh, yeah. So if you look in those flowers, supposedly it says Paul and a question mark.
Well, it's been on my wall for a really long time, and I don't think I've ever seen that.
And there's the other theory around that says on the Abbey Road cover, when they're walking across the crossing, he's not wearing shoes. And I think it's in Indian culture, you take off your shoes as a mark of respect for the dead, or something. There's something like that. Like if you're at a memorial or a funeral, you would remove your shoes as a mark of respect, or something like that. And because they were very much into the Indian culture at the time, people are tying that all together.
So that one's also on my wall, but he is shoeless, which we all know. We've seen it a million times. But you'd think if they were really going to be someone doing the whole Indian culture, it'd probably be George Harrison, who would have taken his shoes off.
That's true, but then again, George Harrison was still alive. This is Paul McCartney's brother now.
That's true. It's true. Well, Paul, we'll never know. Apparently, Avril Lavigne has died like before too, and they've replaced her. I don't know all the details, but that's a paired thing too. She died. That's why she never made it into modern day music or something.
Is it because she was married? Well, you know what? I know exactly what happened. She divorced Chad Kroeger of Nickelback fame, and then she married Chad of Kroger Christiansburg fame. See?
she had to start over. That makes complete sense. She's probably working in Kroger too. Then we just didn't realize it.
Well, to be honest, I haven't been in Kroger for a long time. I always do the pickup, so she could be in there working with Chad and having a beautiful life together. Unless
she's behind the Starbucks counter, I wouldn't know either. Oh, Lord. But yeah.
But there you go. And I think on the thought that Avril Lavigne is working the Starbucks counter in Kroger in Christiansburg, I think this is a perfect place to leave the podcast for this week.
I have one thing from a notorious person you guys may know. Cher once said in an interview when she was asked about celebrities dying, she responded back, I think it was Jay Leno, and said, the best thing some people can do for their career is die.
It's true. I mean, like you said, Michael Jackson, he was almost bankrupt. I think the Michael Jackson estate now is got money coming out their ears.
Because I sold off all the rights to his music. But anyway, guys, the best thing you can do for your career is die. That's where I'll leave it.
There we go. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.